Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the introductory paragraph for a multi-paragraph essay. Okay, what's the purpose of an introductory paragraph? Well, first, it gets the reader's attention. Then it tells them what will be covered in the essay in the order it will be covered in. In other words, the order of the points you mention in the introduction must always match the order of the body paragraphs that come later in the essay. This is super important so readers don't get confused. So there's three major parts of the introductory paragraph. First, there's the hook, which is supposed to grab readers' attentions, and you can do this in a variety of ways. Then there is the transition, which moves the reader from the hook to the driving force of the essay. So in other words, it begins to narrow the focus of the introduction, getting ready to state the thesis. And then there's the big bang, the thesis, which clearly states the point of the essay and gives 2 to 3 reasons, points, etc. that will prove the thesis. And the thesis is usually in the last sentence of the introduction. Okay, but what order do I write the intro paragraph in? So the first thing you write is actually the thesis statement. So even though the reader will read the hook first, you don't write the hook first. So write the thesis statement, then review your thesis statement. It should clearly state the claim or what you were trying to prove in the essay and give 2 to 3 brief points, ways, or reasons you will be using to prove your claim. Each of these points will be a body paragraph in your essay. Think about what could introduce your thesis or what comes to mind about the thesis, and this will help you narrow down the hook approach. So here's types of hooks. We've got 6 types that I'm going to deal with. One is personal example, observations, or anecdotes, which are little personal stories. Second is quotations, facts or statistics, rhetorical questions, current events, or contrasting against the thesis statement as a way of building reader interest. So let's take a look at the personal examples and observations. Personal examples provide a strong example or anecdote to use. While you can make up the personal experience, be careful that it sounds believable. A personal observation is different from a personal example. An observation is something you saw happening. So let's take example 1. The thesis statement says, cancer affects a patient physically, psychologically, and socially. This thesis is saying that the essay will discuss 3 aspects of cancer in a particular order in the essay. In other words, this essay will have 3 body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1 will talk about the physical aspects of cancer. Body paragraph 2 will talk about the psychological aspects of cancer. And body paragraph 3 will talk about the social aspects of cancer. So let's look at a hook, a personal anecdote, and a transition to the thesis. On Friday, February 9th, 2011, life changed for an 18-year-old young man who became ill from a bacterial infection. His body could not fight the infection. Why? After a week of examinations by several specialists, the diagnosis was made. Leukemia, a cancer of the bone marrow. I am that young man. So you can see how you're hooked in. You're like, oh my God, this happened to him at 18 years old. And then we have the transition sentence. When a person finds out that he has cancer, just as I did, his whole world changes. And then from there, we would go into the thesis statement that we had on the previous slide. So what's that look like all completed? He starts with his hook. Then he has that one transition sentence which gets you from the hook and leads you up to the thesis so you know what's coming in the thesis. And his thesis goes with the transition sentence says his whole world changes, and his thesis is talking about that really, that cancer affects him in all kinds of ways. Okay, so I want you to try to figure out the next example. On a separate piece of paper for the next example, write down and label the transition sentences. There may be more than one. According to the thesis, what will each body paragraph in the essay be about? Actually, on your homework, write body paragraph 1, what's the topic going to be about? Body paragraph 2, what's the topic going to be about? If you notice, I've only listed 2 body paragraphs because the example I've given you only has 2 body paragraphs. So in total, it would be a 4-paragraph essay. An intro, 2 bodies, and a conclusion, not a 5-paragraph essay. Okay, make sure you label your answers. Example 2, slide 11. Okay, so here's my example. Let's think back to our example about the pearl and how Steinbeck set the moods in the novel. This is an introductory paragraph using a personal observation hook. In my personal life, I have learned that life has ups and downs and your emotions fluctuate with these events, but it is the guessing of where life will take you that keeps the journey interesting. Like life, novels work the same way. Some of the best ones take you from bliss to trauma and back again, while each page masterfully unveils another plot event and thus another mood shift. In The Pearl, John Steinbeck uses visual and auditory imagery to create various moods in the novel to keep the reader interested. Okay, so you're going to identify the body paragraphs that are coming out of the thesis here and what the transition sentence or sentences are. Okay, let's move on to our second kind of hook, using quotes. A quote does not have to be from a famous person, but remember, you have to use quotation marks. A quote must somehow relate to the thesis of the sentence. In other words, you don't want to put a quote that you just like in your introduction. You have to make sure that that quote is going to be able to transition to the thesis statement, right? Because we said hook, then the transitions between the hook and the thesis. Okay. So let's look at our first example. Here's the quote. The mind is its own place, and itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. This thought by John Milton was recorded over 400 years ago, but it is still timely for us today. In life, we can be miserable when things are going well, just as we can be happy when things are going wrong. Here's our transition from the quote. He seems to be saying that we are the ones to control our lives. And here's our thesis. With this thought in mind, we can control the way we face life through our attitude, our determination, and our ability. Okay, so you can see he transitioned really nicely into that and listed 3 things that we could control our life with. All right, another hook can be using facts or statistics. Please remember the facts should be unusual and they must be from a credible source. Don't get facts from friends and put those in an intro. It's not believable. Okay, example 1. In the desert regions of Arizona, solar homes date back to the pre-Columbian Indians who designed their homes in south-facing cliffs to receive the warmth of the winter sun. The transition is today solar homes are becoming popular across the country. And here is the writer's thesis. These solar homes, as then, must be carefully designed to use the sun efficiently in the orientation, the exterior, and the interior. And so you can see that the hook was talking about how solar homes were designed in the deserts many years ago. And then he said, guess what? Solar homes today are becoming popular. And then he talks about they need to be designed well too. All right. So again, another example is going to come up, and this is what you need to do for the next slide. On a separate piece of paper, write down the transition sentences. There may be more than one. Write down and label the thesis sentence, and then finally, tell me what the body paragraphs will be about. Just the main idea or topic. Same thing, body paragraph 1, and write the main idea or the topic. Body paragraph 2, etc. Label your answers. Example 2, slide 17. I'm actually, Okay. So the next slide actually identifies the hook, the transition sentences, and the thesis for you. And it gives you facts. It says, according to an article on family safety and first aid published by Berkeley Books, 700,000 residences burn each year. 16 times a year, somebody dies in one of these burning homes. The best way to deal with the possibility of loss from fire is to plan ahead before it happens. Otherwise, it is too late. In order not to become one of these statistics, Americans need to equip their homes with safety devices, set and adhere to safety rules, and practice a family escape plan in order to protect their families. All right, the other kind of hook you can use is current events. The events must be recent, and they should be made public by newspapers, television, or radio. In other words, media that people are very used to watching or listening. So here's a current event example. Here's my hook. This morning's news reported that a young girl, age 5, was abducted from her classroom in the New York area. Residents were shocked to find that the kidnapper walked right into the child's classroom and no one stopped him. The transition then says, although the child managed to escape, obviously safety procedures clearly broke down and this poor child paid the emotional price. And the thesis, in order to assure the safety of all children, schools across the country must review safety procedures, tighten safety protocols where necessary, and assure that all staff members are properly trained. Okay. And so another type of hook is using contrast to the thesis. In direct contrast to the thesis statement, this kind of hook brings up an idea that is the opposite to the thesis, so that the real thesis stands out more in the introduction. And so this is a great example. Since the middle 1940s, the plant commonly known as marijuana has been classified as a Schedule I drug, which recognizes marijuana as a dangerous narcotic similar to heroin. So when you first read that hook, you say, oh my God, it's saying something really, really bad about marijuana. But as we read on, you're going to see this essay is not saying a bad thing about marijuana, it's saying a good thing. So this writer is starting out with the opposite to get your attention, and then by the time we get to the thesis statement, you're going to say, oh, it's not really bad like it said it was. In fact, it's really good. So then, let's go to the transition. Research in the last few years, however, has brought many new discoveries relating to the possible uses of marijuana as a medicinal drug that can be used to treat many illnesses. And here's the thesis. Marijuana has been found to be effective in treating glaucoma, cancer, and a variety of other illnesses. So here, by using the contrast in the hook, the reader realizes that drugs aren't always bad because marijuana is actually a good drug, which we learn in the thesis. Okay, so let's recap. The hook grabs the reader's attention. There are 6 different kinds of hooks: personal examples, observations, quotes, facts, rhetorical questions, current events, contrast to the thesis statement. The transition begins to narrow the focus of the introduction, getting ready to state the thesis, and then the thesis clearly states the point of the essay and gives 2 to 3 reasons or points that will prove the thesis matches the body paragraphs. Okay, so tomorrow, here's what's up for you. Bring in any homework that was generated from this video, and we will begin to write introduction paragraphs. All right, and if you'll bear with me, this last slide just gives credit. It's my Works Cited page because I borrowed a lot of stuff from another PowerPoint and from a book about writing lessons. So, Pirkey out. See you tomorrow. Hope this wasn't too bad. Okay, bye.